Good job.
That is our final speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we've had a number of speakers, comments from the commission. Questions?
I have a few comments.
Yes, ma'am.
I support this. I do want to address a couple things, just different letters people have sent me and different letters to the editor. I just want to I want to say a couple of things because I know that sometimes people don't have all the information that we have or they haven't thought about it as much. So I just wanted to go through a couple themes that I've heard. One is that we're going to pay somebody to help us with this, and I think anytime that you want to hold somebody accountable and you want them to work for you on a regular basis, you normally give them some sort of money for that. So I support that. And there's also some editorials and just people worried about the long-term success of the shelter and other shelters' long-term success of the shelter and other shelters that may have been done throughout the county. And I don't think any of us going into this believe that whether it's Dr. Marber or anybody else, that consultant is going to determine the long-term selection or success of this program. So I think we know that, you hire a business consultant to help you with your business, but in 5 years, if your business isn't doing well, it might be because of something that you're doing. So I think getting a consultant here is the first step and a good step to take. And there's also been a lot of references to Pinellas and Sarasota, and it was almost a year ago, or a little over a year ago, that I was in Pinellas and was in the downtown area that was the most concentrated area, and then also visited the shelter. And if being in that shelter and seeing how well run it was, and seeing how the faith community, I mean, they had every meal planned out for the next 6 months that a different church was bringing. I mean, it was so well done, and I would be so proud if we could come together with something that is that well organized and is helping the community and helping the people who need the services. Also, there's been a couple mentions of creating a administrator or a czar, and I think that in our contract it talks about creating a governing board, and that governing board is probably going to have somebody that will be in charge of this. So I do think that there will be somebody here locally. I want everyone to know that we'll probably be working on this for quite a long time. And lastly, there were two editorials. One of them talked about making sure that it's really data-driven and that we don't just spend money without knowing what we're spending money on. And I mean, we're getting to the end of. I think Pastor Troy mentioned, when you start something, if you think about everything, you never get started. But I do think that having an accountable shelter that we understand, what we're spending money on, and if it is successful, of course. That would be something that we will look for. And lastly, there was, vetting the end game before we start investing. So there's been a lot of great input from the community, and I just wanted them to know that I think we've all listened, we've taken it on, and I feel very excited that we're moving forward with this next step as a commission, and I'm excited to vote yes on this tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Traeger?
I've been doing research about the homeless issue for a few weeks, and I've come to the conclusion that there are many opinions about how is the best way to try to solve it. And I am so glad that we're finally getting ready to get something done about it. And I like that the contract is in phases so that we can know earlier if this is not the solution for us. I was very glad to hear that Father Phil say that we had a lot of people already on board. However, I don't like the idea that phase one is going to take 9 months setting up governing issues before we know who definitely is going to be on board with us and how much monetary support we're going to get. I think that we cannot afford Daytona Beach alone to do this. I think we need partners, and I think we need to get the partners in place before we get the governing boards in place. According to the contract, that the city manager can do that, can give advance written approval for the consultant to provide phase 2 services before phase 1 services, and I think this is the logical way to go about it. We need to know first who our partners are going to be and how much is going to be contributed with the anticipated funding and revenue before wasting time creating legal structures and boards. And I think that's what we need to do first before we get the governing boards. I think we need to get our partners in line. And I've heard the pros and cons about Dr. Morgan's proposal. It sounds good, but we need to make sure this is going to work for Volusia County. And I think the idea that it is set up in phases is very good for us. But I would like to put phase 2 first and phase 1 second.
I'm going to comment on that. I don't agree, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that what you'll do, I think it'll happen simultaneously in the sense, Ruth, is what I'm saying, is that as you go to the community and you look for people to support the project and you start setting up the board, if the support is not there, it's not going anywhere. But if you've got the agencies, the business partners, those in the community that are going to say, yes, we're going to be on the governing board, yes, we're going to be a part of setting up this structure, then it should flow from there, that when there's that widespread support, then those entities that we're going to ask to help fund it, the other governmental, they're going to see that there is widespread community support. And there should be overlap between the governmental bodies and the private support and the business support that will be a part of this whole process. You know, one of the criticisms we've received is that there hasn't been community input in terms of how the contract's being structured. And I think that as we move into setting up the governing board, it's just my opinion that that will allow the community input as well as we move into the other phases. So I don't know how the rest of y'all feel, but that's, to me, how it logically should flow.
You don't think 9 months is a long time to be doing that?
Well, it doesn't mean you wouldn't move into phase 2 as you're doing phase 1. Go ahead, Jim, because, I mean, you know, we've talked about this at length.
The way I see this, you know, we divide it up into phases so we had specific targets to hit within certain time frames. That doesn't mean it doesn't get accelerated, and that it doesn't. There may be, particularly in that first 1 and 2, is going to be talking to one and the same people in many cases.
Right.
So you're going to know what kind of support you've got going forward. So that's, I don't see that as a problem, is what I'm really saying. But we've got to have some structure to work with and some way to evaluate, you know, are we going to go forward or not? And I wanted to be sure we build it in early and have a reporting mechanism so that you would know where we're at and what's happening, and be comfortable with each phase of this project.
And that's the other thing, you know, we're supposed to be getting, that was a question I had, you know, we're supposed to be getting monthly reports to you, and then how is that going to be handled as far as we're concerned? Just tell us how that's going to work.
As soon as I get them.
Okay.
And then if it, I haven't really thought in detail of how we'd go through, you know, with moving forward in each phase, but I want you to be a part of that process.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry. I think I'm allergic to Commissioner Henry. I have never had this until I got on this commission. Whatever this is. But I know we have the back out clause. Does a phase have to be completed to back out, or we can back out at any time?
Anytime. We can stop at any point, and it's the way it happens. If we stop it, then it's cost incurred up to that point, that date and time.
Okay.
Thank you.
To kind of split the baby on where Ruth and Pam were, I think we do need to kind of get the governance structure, get some more, have to be more of a formal presentation that can be made to the potential partners, but I definitely agree with Ruth that, you know, waiting until September 1, you know, the language in here, I had to read it a couple of times to get more comfortable with it, that, you know, phase 2 won't begin until phase 1 is completed. You know, that's definitely not the right way to go, but I do believe we need, you know, a couple of months at least of getting the format together and having something to take to people to describe more of the operational structure, who's responsible for what. You know, this is going to sink or swim based on whether we get the partners. I mean, we cannot do this by ourselves. We cannot do this with only the East Volusia cities. So I truly believe that probably after about 2 or 3 months of getting with the community-based organizations and the community itself, that there will be enough of a structure to go out and start engaging in informal dialogue with the other municipalities in the county about, really getting them on board with, at least some sort of letter of intent to participate, so we can, it's going to snowball once we can really get some momentum going. We have to have a product to sell first. I wholly support this. I've been working on homeless issues since the early 90s, believe it or not. So, I've seen about every solution that known to man. And, it's funny if you think about the many billions of dollars that have gone into consultants over the years. Maybe we would have spent some of that on actual, things that help homeless people. We would have been a little better off today. But we're doing the right thing. This isn't going to cure the whole issue, but it's going to get us, a good anchor, a good base starting point to go from, so that we can, help find those people that really need, that have substance abuse and mental health issues, and need more intense services than what would really be able to provide it at a facility like this. So I think it's great, and I'm ready to get moving with something.
I'm ready to get moving too.
Yeah.
If I could just clarify one thing, and I'll give you a little of the logic on the phasing and the whys. The importance of having it be not just Daytona Beach is paramount. That it's not just Daytona Beach doing this, and having a board that's become, it takes ownership of the process as it goes forward is key to that not being just a Daytona Beach project. And that was some of that thought process. I don't disagree that we've got to know who the partners are going to be in the process, and we've got to get them on board as we go forward. But some of that is going to be, it's going to be easier to do that if some of the people that are actually talking to them are not necessarily from Daytona Beach or representing Daytona Beach. So that's some of that logic.
I notice my voice is getting a little hoarse. I think I would be allergic to Commissioner Henry, too.
Yeah, well, I guess he's going to have to take it tonight, because I would say that
I don't mind, because my voice is good and strong. So I don't know what it is. But I do want to speak on this just for a second.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, when we first started this, we had a lot of support, and now, just like all the other commissioners, too, Mayor, we start receiving emails and letters of some people who are speaking against it. So I'm sitting here thinking, we can leave things the way they are, which is unacceptable to me.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have the same results. The 9 months, the year going to pass by anyway, and we're still going to see the same problems we got. There's no one solution to this, but they tell me we sit and do nothing, nothing happens.
You're right.
But at least if we make a step forward and see what happens, then we'll know whether or not this is for Volusia County and for Daytona Beach. So to the naysayers, I'm going to have to say this to them, that I'm for moving forward, at least find out, will this work for us? Because I can't sit here and continue to sit here and see the homeless situation the way it is and do nothing. And I'm going to fully support this. Thank you.
Marie were you going to bring
No,
up?
I was just going to point out that phase 2, the goal is to get binding commitments.
Right.
Clearly that's going to be part of the discussion in phase 1, but I don't think you'll be able to get a binding, an enforceable commitment for a long-term agreement, without that governing, who's going to have a seat at the table on how this runs. So that I think that was the idea on this phasing, but it is flexible in any event.
And it says that. Yeah, and we talked before when we talked about doing the contract about the leadership within the community, and I think, to me, what's important is that it's not just Marbot out there talking the talk, that we have the leadership from the community, whoever that turns out to be, and it's got to be countywide, and, some of us have, at the round table, Chet's sitting there, we've talked about it's got to be DeLand, Daytona, Orange, because it's got to be seen, if it's going to move forward, as a whole participation in Volusia County and not just one segment. So there's got to be more than one face, in my opinion, as we try to move forward with it. So that's, to me, the other logic for the governing board. 2 other things have been said in some of the stuff we've received in the last few days in the emails. And and you said it's a piece, but when we talk about that families aren't included, the specifically aren't, y'all know that from Marvit's report, you've received an email that talked about that, and that teenagers and young adults weren't included. And I heard a reference tonight to those under 18, and I want to make sure everybody understands, and those of you up here do. If you're under the age of 18, you're a minor, and the state, the Department of Children and Families, would address your concerns. Those students that are in the school districts that are homeless unaccompanied youth, as y'all well know, because you've heard me talk about it, we address. And then families are addressed as well through many different programs in the county. So this is not designed, it was never designed to deal with those populations. Those are being addressed in other ways in the community. So I just want that out there in the record as well.
Okay. Any others? Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, and I guess I'll just chime in since much has been said. And after we've said everything, tonight is a night of action, and we would all, I think, agree that, we've talked a lot about this for well over a year, and now is the time to do something, and I'm very proud of this body of elected officials who have decided to say that we're not just going to talk, we're going to continue to do something, and that we're going to try to lead. Now, whether we can gain the buy-in that we desire remains to be seen, but what I will say is that if we as a community, as a county, as a city are going to be successful, that success is going to be determined by a sustained energy by all of us that is required to iron out the details, to gain the commitment, and to maintain the commitment, because you can start a race, but it takes a lot of energy to really make a dent, an impact on a scourge as problematic as homelessness. And so we're going to be calling on all parties for that. I think that the signs are indicating that the county will join us. I really believe that. And as much as we can say, we do have other people who have said that they're partners, they're going to be partners. But it takes this process to make those things become binding. So we have to start. And so let us begin the heavy lifting. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Likes not opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all.